My best friend stole my husband. She never knew the mansion and company were mine. What would you do if the two people you trusted most tried to take over the life you built? Now, let us return to the moment it all began. The first sign that Claire Whitmore had stolen more than Maya's husband was the silk robe hanging from her shoulders. Maya Bennett Harrington stood in the doorway of the primary bedroom, one hand still wrapped around the handle of her overnight bag, while the late afternoon sun spilled across the pale oak floor. The robe was deep plum, custom-made in Milan, embroidered with Maya's initials near the cuff. Claire had always admired it. She had once laughed and said it made Maya look like the kind of woman who owned the room before entering it. Now Claire wore it barefoot beside the bed, her blonde hair loose, one hand resting against the carved bedpost as though she had already practiced belonging there. Ryan stood near the windows in shirt sleeves, his tie abandoned across the chair Maya had chosen when the room was renovated. Neither of them looked surprised to see her. That hurt more than panic would have. Maya set her bag down carefully. "How long?" she asked. Ryan looked toward Claire before answering. The glance was brief, but intimate enough to make 12 years of marriage feel suddenly rehearsed. "Maya, we should sit down." "How long?" Claire folded the robe tighter around herself. 6 months. Her voice carried the calm of someone who believed confession was the same as courage. Maya looked at the woman who had stood beside her at graduation, held her bouquet at the wedding, and slept in the guest room after every heartbreak of her own. Claire knew where Maya kept her mother's letters. She knew which song made her cry in the car. She knew Ryan's favorite wine because Maya had taught her. "You came into my home," Maya said. Claire's expression sharpened. "Your home." Ryan stepped forward. "Do not turn this into a property argument." Maya almost smiled at the irony. The mansion stood on 12 acres outside Westchester, with limestone terraces, a glass conservatory, and a private road lined with white oaks. Ryan believed it belonged to the Harrington family trust. Claire apparently believed marrying him would make it hers. Neither knew the trust bore Maya's full legal name. "What should I turn it into?" Maya asked. "A misunderstanding?" Ryan exhaled, already impatient. "This marriage has been over for years. Claire understands me. She understands the company, the pressure, the future. She works in corporate communications. She knows how to stand beside me without making everything feel like a test." Maya looked at him. She had financed the first 3 years of Bennett Dynamics through a private investment structure he never bothered to examine. She had allowed him to serve as CEO because he needed a title the world could see. She had stayed quiet at board dinners when he spoke of building the company from nothing. Apparently, her silence had convinced him she was nothing too. Claire crossed the room and stopped beside Ryan. "You should leave tonight," she said. "It will be easier for everyone." Maya's gaze moved from Claire's bare feet to the initials on the robe. "You think this is easier?" "I think dignity means knowing when you are no longer wanted." Ryan walked to the bedside table and lifted a cream-colored folder. "The divorce papers are ready. You have 48 hours to remove your personal belongings. I will arrange a fair settlement." Maya took the folder but did not open it. "And the house?" "Remains with me." "The company?" "Maya, you were never involved in operations." Claire's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Ryan has already offered me the vice president position after the announcement." Maya felt the final piece settle into place. They had not only planned the affair, they had planned her removal from the life they believed belonged to Ryan. She walked to the dresser and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a small black document case containing the mansion trust, the controlling share certificates, and the original company charter. She lifted it and closed the drawer. Ryan watched her. "That is all you are taking?" "For tonight." Claire glanced around the bedroom, relief already softening her face. Maya removed her wedding ring and placed it beside Ryan's. "Watch." Then she picked up the document case and her overnight bag. At the doorway, Ryan called after her. "You cannot use private records to interfere with the company." Maya turned just enough to meet his eyes. "Private records?" she said softly. "Ryan, tomorrow morning the board is going to explain exactly whose company you have been running." The woman Maya had once trusted with every secret now stood in her bedroom and spoke as if betrayal had made her brave. Claire did not follow Maya into the hallway immediately. She waited until Ryan closed the bedroom door behind them, then descended the curved staircase with one hand gliding along the polished walnut rail, still wearing Maya's plum robe. The mansion's evening lights had come on automatically, bathing the foyer in warm gold. Family photographs lined the walls. Maya and Ryan at their wedding, Claire laughing beside them at a summer fundraiser, the three of them on the terrace during Christmas 2 years earlier. Claire paused beneath one of those photographs and looked up at it with something that almost resembled irritation. "You always made everything look perfect," she said. Maya stood near the front doors, the black document case resting against her side. "You were in most of those pictures. That was the problem." Claire's voice sharpened. "I was always beside your life, never inside it." Maya studied her best friend carefully. In college, Claire had arrived with one suitcase, 3 part-time jobs, and a scholarship she nearly lost after her mother became ill. Maya shared textbooks, covered meals without announcing it, and introduced Claire to people who later opened doors in public relations. She had never thought of that help as a debt. Apparently, Claire had. "So this is about envy," Maya said. Claire's expression hardened. "Do not reduce me to envy. I worked for everything I have. And I did not. You were born with security. You never had to wonder whether one mistake would send you back to nothing." The accusation was familiar. Claire had used versions of it for years whenever Maya's quiet confidence made her uncomfortable. She never knew Maya's wealth came with conditions, secrecy, and a family history she had spent years trying to escape. She only saw the mansion, the clothes, and the husband Claire now believed she had won. Ryan entered the foyer fully dressed, his tie restored, his phone in hand. "The car is outside," he told Maya. "It will take you wherever you want to go." "How generous." He ignored the tone. "Tomorrow, my attorney will send temporary housing options and a proposed settlement." Claire stepped closer to Ryan, no longer bothering to hide their alliance. "You should accept it, Maya. Dragging this out will only make people curious about why Ryan stayed so long." Maya's eyes moved to her. "Stayed? He felt responsible for you." Claire spoke gently, as if delivering difficult news to someone fragile. "You stopped growing. You stopped attending events. You never wanted the kind of life he was building." Maya remembered the board presentations she had reviewed at midnight, the anonymous capital she had released to keep Bennett Dynamics solvent, and the invitations Ryan had stopped sharing because Claire told him Maya preferred privacy. "And you do?" Maya asked. Claire lifted her chin. "I understand what a leader needs beside him." Ryan placed one hand at the center of Claire's back. The gesture was meant to reassure her, but it also revealed how rehearsed their new life already was. "Claire will take over communications next month," he said. "The board understands the importance of presenting stability." "Does the board know about the two of you?" Maya asked. His silence answered. "Not yet. We will make an announcement after the divorce filing." Claire smiled faintly. "We are hosting a private reception here tomorrow evening. Investors, senior staff, a few members of the press. It will show that the company is moving forward. In Maya's house, under Maya's chandeliers. To celebrate control of Maya's company. The arrogance might have been funny if it had not been built from so much betrayal." Maya opened the front door. Cool evening air entered the foyer, stirring the edge of Claire's borrowed robe. "You should change before the guests arrive tomorrow," Maya said. Claire glanced down, then smiled. "I think it suits me. The robe is monogram." Maya's voice remained calm. "So is the trust that owns this house." Ryan frowned. "What does that mean?" Maya stepped onto the front terrace. A black sedan waited near the fountain, but she did not move toward it yet. "It means your reception may be shorter than you planned." She lifted the document case slightly. "At 9 tomorrow morning, Bennett Dynamics board will receive proof that I own 62% of the voting shares. At 10, the estate attorney will notify you that this mansion belongs to my private trust." Claire's face emptied. Ryan stared at her. Maya closed the door gently between them, leaving the two people who had stolen her marriage standing inside property they had never owned. By midnight, Ryan had convinced himself that Maya's warning was a bluff, because accepting the truth would mean admitting he had never owned the life he was trying to give Claire. The mansion remained bright long after Maya's car disappeared beyond the gates. Claire had changed out of the plum robe and into a cream silk dress she found hanging in Maya's dressing room, though the borrowed elegance did little to steady her hands. Ryan stood in the library with his phone pressed to his ear, calling attorneys, board members, and anyone who might confirm that Maya had exaggerated. No one gave him the answer he wanted. The company's general counsel refused to discuss ownership records outside business hours. The estate attorney did not return his messages. Even the private bank that handled the mansion's expenses informed him that his name was listed only as an authorized resident. "This is ridiculous," he said, dropping the phone onto the desk. "She handled some family paperwork years ago. That does not mean she owns anything." Claire stood near the fireplace, staring at the Bennett family crest carved into the mantel. She had noticed it before, but Ryan always told her the house belonged to an old Harrington trust. Now the letter B seemed less decorative and more like a warning neither of them had bothered to read. "Why would the company be called Bennett Dynamics if it was yours?" she asked. Ryan turned sharply. "The name came from Maya's grandfather. He invested early. You told everyone you founded it." "I did. I built the operation, hired the team, created the strategy." Claire folded her arms. "That is not the same as owning it." The sentence landed harder because it came from her. Ryan walked to the bar and poured a drink he did not touch. "She was never involved in the company." "Then why does she have the share certificates?" "Because she kept personal records." Maya liked controlling details. Claire looked around the library, at the paintings, the leather-bound books, and the silver-framed photographs she had once envied. For years, she believed Maya's power came from being Ryan's wife. The possibility that Ryan's power had come from Maya changed everything. "What happens if she is telling the truth?" she asked. "She is not." "What happens?" Ryan faced her, anger rising beneath his composure. "The board will not remove me. I am the public face of Bennett Dynamics. Investors trust me. And the house. We are not leaving." Claire heard the word "we" and tried to hold on to it. She had imagined waking in the primary bedroom, hosting dinners beneath the crystal chandeliers, and entering company events beside Ryan as the woman who replaced Maya. She had not imagined having to prove she belonged before the first night was over. Her phone buzzed with a message from the event planner confirming arrangements for the next evening's reception. White orchids, champagne, a string quartet, and custom place cards bearing Ryan and Claire's names. "Should I cancel the party?" she asked. Ryan looked toward the dark windows. "No. Canceling would make us look afraid." "Are we?" He did not answer. At 8:57 the next morning, Maya entered Bennett Dynamics through the private executive entrance wearing a charcoal suit and carrying the same black document case. She was accompanied by Evelyn Brooks, the company's longtime general counsel, and Marcus Hale, chairman of the board. Employees who knew Maya only as Ryan's quiet wife watched her pass with restrained curiosity. At 9 precisely, every director received a secure notice documenting Maya's 62% voting interest and requesting an emergency review of executive conduct. Ryan arrived 6 minutes later, breathless and furious, with Claire close behind him. "You cannot call a board meeting without me," he said. Maya took the seat at the head of the table. "I did not call it without you." She opened the document case. "I called it because of you." Evelyn distributed copies of the original company charter, proving that Bennett Dynamics had been formed with Maya's inheritance and placed under her controlling trust. Ryan scanned the first page, then looked up in disbelief. Before he could speak, Marcus opened a second file. It contained unauthorized appointment papers naming Claire vice president, signed by Ryan the previous week. Maya's gaze moved to her former best friend. "You accepted a position in a company you believed you had stolen with my husband," she said calmly. "Now the board will decide whether either of you remains inside it." The board did not need to raise its voice to make Ryan understand that power had already moved to the other side of the table. Maya sat beneath the soft recessed lights of the executive conference room, her black document case open before her, while Ryan stood near the door as if refusing the chair might preserve some piece of authority. Claire remained beside him, one hand gripping the back of an empty seat. The cream silk dress she had chosen from Maya's closet looked suddenly less like triumph and more like evidence. Marcus Hale adjusted his glasses and reviewed the appointment papers again. "Mr. Harrington, you named Ms. Whitmore vice president without board approval, compensation review, or disclosure of your personal relationship." Ryan's face tightened. Claire was already leading communication strategy. "She was a senior director," Marcus replied. "That did not authorize you to create an executive position." Claire lifted her chin. "My work justified the promotion." Maya looked at her calmly. "Then your work can be evaluated without my husband's signature attached to it." Claire's cheeks colored. For years, she had accused Maya of having advantages no one else received. Now she was standing in a boardroom defending a title secretly granted by the man sleeping beside her. Ryan turned toward Maya. You are making this personal. You made it personal when you used company authority to reward the woman helping you remove me from my own home. The house has nothing to do with Bennett dynamics. Evelyn Brooks opened a second folder. Actually, it does. She distributed copies of several expense reports. The White Orchids, Champagne, String Quartet, and event staff for Ryan and Claire's planned reception had all been charged to the company's executive hospitality account. Ryan scanned the pages. It was an investor event. The guest list includes society reporters, Claire's friends, and no confirmed investors, Evelyn said. Claire looked toward Ryan. You said accounting approved it. He did not answer. Maya studied them both. Their new life had not begun with love. It had begun with unauthorized titles, borrowed rooms, and invoices sent to a company neither of them owned. The reception is canceled, Maya said. Ryan stepped forward. You cannot cancel an event at my residence. Maya slid the estate trust across the table. Read the first page. He did. His expression changed slowly as he found her full legal name listed as sole beneficiary and trustee. The mansion had been purchased 9 years earlier using assets from Maya's maternal inheritance. Ryan's right to occupy it existed only through their marriage and ended upon formal separation. This is deceptive, he said. Maya's voice remained even. You signed the residency agreement before we moved in. No one reads every trust attachment. You did not read the company charter either. A director near the window looked down, hiding discomfort. Ryan had built his reputation on understanding contracts, yet his entire life rested on documents he assumed would always favor him. Claire reached for the trust. What does this mean for me? Maya met her eyes. It means you entered a private residence without the owner's consent, removed personal clothing, and authorized changes through staff who believed Ryan had permission. Claire went pale. I did not steal anything. You wore my robe, planned to replace the furniture, and instructed the house manager to move my belongings into storage. Ryan looked at Claire sharply. You did what? I was preparing the house for the reception. For the first time, uncertainty moved between them. Claire had acted like an owner before Ryan had even confirmed he was one. Maya closed the estate folder. No one is being publicly humiliated. The house staff will pack your personal belongings, Ryan. Claire has no belongings there beyond what she brought last night. You both have until 6 this evening to leave. Ryan stared at her. You would throw us out before the divorce is filed? You gave me 48 hours. The sentence landed without anger. Marcus cleared his throat and returned attention to the company. The board must also address executive conduct. He presented a temporary resolution suspending Ryan as CEO, pending an independent audit, and freezing Claire's promotion. Ryan's disbelief turned to panic. You cannot run Bennett Dynamics without me. Maya leaned back slightly. I have never needed to run it alone. She opened the final compartment of the document case and removed 12 years of board directives bearing her signature as controlling owner. Every major expansion Ryan claimed as his vision had required her approval. Every emergency capital release carried her authorization. Every lender had answered to her trust. Claire read the first page, then looked at Maya as if seeing a stranger. You let everyone believe Ryan built this. I let his work speak for itself, Maya said. He decided my silence meant absence. Marcus called for the vote. The resolution passed 9-1, with Ryan's own seat suspended before he could object. His company access disappeared from the screen at the exact moment his phone began ringing. The estate manager was calling to confirm that the mansion's locks had been reset under Maya's authority. Then Evelyn placed one final report in front of the board. Claire had already signed a contract to sell several pieces of antique furniture from the mansion to fund her planned redesign. Maya looked across the table at her former best friend. You did not just move into my life, she said softly. You started selling it before you knew who owned the keys. The party Claire planned to celebrate her victory became the first place everyone learned she had never owned the house, the company, or even the future Ryan promised her. By late afternoon, the mansion's front drive was crowded with catering vans, florists, and musicians who had arrived before the cancellation notice reached them. White orchids filled the foyer, champagne cooled in silver buckets, and place cards bearing Ryan Harrington and Claire Whitmore rested beneath crystal chandeliers that belonged to Maya's trust. Claire returned from the board meeting in silence, Her cream dress wrinkled at the waist where she had gripped it during the vote. Ryan followed several minutes later, speaking urgently into his phone as attorneys explained that Maya's ownership documents were valid, his executive access had been suspended, and the mansion's occupancy agreement ended the moment their separation became official. The estate manager, Thomas Reed, waited beside the staircase with 2 security representatives and a clipboard. "Mr. Harrington, your personal belongings have been packed in the West Guest Suite," he said. "Transportation can be arranged to any address within 50 miles. Ryan stared at him. "I hired you." Thomas's expression did not change. "Mrs. Bennett Harrington's trust employs the household staff." Claire looked toward the ballroom, where event workers continued arranging flowers. "The reception is already paid for. We can still host it somewhere else." Thomas handed her a folder. The event contracts were charged to Bennett Dynamics. "Those payments have been frozen. Vendors may remove their materials unless another party assumes the invoices personally." Claire's confidence faltered. She had spent weeks designing the evening as her public entrance into Ryan's world. She had selected the music, approved the guest list, and told reporters that Bennett Dynamics would soon announce a bold new chapter. Now the musicians were packing their instruments. The florist was carrying away centerpieces, and the champagne distributor was counting unopened bottles. "This is Maya's revenge," Claire whispered. Ryan turned on her. "Maya did not sign those furniture contracts. You did. You told me the house would be ours. I said we would discuss changes after the divorce. You gave me the vice president role, a role the board never approved." The words exposed how quickly their alliance weakened once borrowed power stopped protecting it. Claire's phone began ringing. Guests had received messages from the event planner explaining the reception was canceled because the hosts lacked authorization to use the property. One Society columnist had already posted a photograph of the invitation beside a report about Ryan's suspension. Claire moved toward the staircase. "I need to collect my things." Thomas stepped gently into her path. "Your belongings have been placed in the front sitting room. You are not authorized to enter the private floors." Claire looked at the robe visible through the open bedroom door above, still hanging where she had left it. For the first time, shame touched her expression. Outside, black cars began arriving despite the cancellation. A few guests had come too early to receive the notice. Investors, senior employees, and reporters stepped onto the terrace expecting celebration, only to find staff removing decorations and Ryan standing beside packed luggage. Maya arrived at 5:30 in a dark green coat, accompanied by Evelyn Brooks and 2 board members. She had not come to create a scene. She came to sign the inventory report protecting the estate's artwork and antiques. The crowd turned toward her. Ryan moved quickly across the foyer. "Maya, stop this before it becomes public." She looked past him at the guests who had already witnessed enough. "You invited the public into my house." Claire stepped forward, anger overtaking caution. "You let us believe everything belonged to Ryan." Maya met her gaze. "You never asked. You saw a husband, a mansion, and a company, then decided proximity made them yours." She signed the inventory form and handed it to Thomas. The antique furniture contracts were canceled, the company funds restored, and every unauthorized instruction placed into the audit. Before leaving, Marcus Hale approached Maya with a newly discovered file from corporate security. Claire had not merely accepted a false promotion. She had prepared a press release announcing that Ryan would rename Bennett Dynamics after the Harrington family once the divorce was complete. Maya read the draft, then looked at the 2 people standing beneath her family crest. "You were planning to erase my name from the company," she said softly. Marcus opened the final attachment. The rebranding documents had already been sent to investors, but they contained one fatal error. The trademark for Bennett Dynamics was registered personally to Maya, giving her immediate authority to block every contract Ryan and Claire had signed. Before Claire stole Maya's husband, she had spent 15 years learning exactly which doors Maya opened, and quietly resenting that she had not opened them herself. They met during their sophomore year at Columbia, when Claire Whitmore arrived in an oversized coat, carrying 2 jobs, a scholarship, and the fear that one missed payment could end everything. Maya Bennett was the first person who noticed Claire skipping meals without embarrassing her about it. She invited her to study over dinner, shared textbooks, and introduced her to professors who later recommended Claire for internships. Maya never spoke about the Bennett fortune. At school, She wore simple sweaters, rode the subway, and let people assume her confidence came from intelligence alone. Claire admired that confidence at first. Then admiration slowly hardened into comparison. Maya seemed to move through the world without asking permission. When a professor dismissed Claire's campaign proposal as too ambitious, Maya stayed late to help rebuild it. When Claire's mother became ill, Maya arranged an emergency grant through a foundation, disguising her involvement so Claire could accept without feeling indebted. Years later, Claire would describe every opportunity as something she earned entirely on her own. Maya never corrected her. Their friendship survived graduation, first jobs, failed relationships, and long nights in small apartments where they promised never to become women who measured each other by money or men. Claire met Ryan because Maya invited her to a product launch when Bennett Dynamics was still operating from a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. Ryan had charisma, a sharp instinct for presentation, and the restless energy of a man determined to prove he belonged among people with inherited power. Maya loved his hunger before she understood how easily hunger could become entitlement. Claire saw it too. She praised his ideas, laughed at his stories, and positioned herself beside him in photographs while Maya handled investors in the background. At first, the attention seemed harmless. Claire was Maya's best friend. Ryan was Maya's husband. Trust made every warning look unreasonable. When Bennett Dynamics expanded, Maya recommended Claire for a communications role. Claire accepted, thanking Maya with tears in her eyes. Within 3 years, she had become senior director. She knew the executive calendars, the board's concerns, and every event Maya stopped attending after Ryan began calling her presence too complicated. Claire told Maya those exclusions were temporary. She told Ryan that Maya preferred privacy. Between them, she built 2 separate versions of the same marriage, each one making herself more necessary. Maya remembered the first moment something felt wrong. It happened after a charity dinner when Claire stayed behind to help Ryan review press coverage. Maya returned to the ballroom for her phone and found them standing close beneath the dimmed chandeliers. Nothing improper had happened, at least nothing visible. Claire stepped back first and smiled too brightly. "We were talking about tomorrow's interview," she said. Maya believed her because 15 years of friendship felt heavier than one uncomfortable second. Now, in the company's legal office, Evelyn Brooks placed a timeline beside the blocked rebranding documents. Corporate security had recovered deleted messages between Claire and Ryan dating back 18 months. They did not begin with romance. They began with strategy. Claire advised Ryan to keep Maya away from board dinners, telling him investors saw her as an invisible complication. Ryan asked how soon the company could transition away from the Bennett name. Claire replied that once the divorce was announced, the story could be reframed as a founder finally stepping out of his wife's shadow. Maya read the exchange without expression. The betrayal had not begun in the bedroom. It had begun in conversations where her best friend helped her husband rewrite history. Then Evelyn opened the final recovered message. Sent 6 months earlier, it contained a scanned copy of the mansion trust and one line from Claire to Ryan. "Maya owns more than you think. We need her gone before she realizes we know." Ryan Harrington had spent 12 years calling Bennett Dynamics his company, never realizing that every time it nearly failed, Maya was the one who quietly decided it would survive. The first rescue came during their 2nd year of marriage, when a major client canceled without warning and payroll was due in 9 days. Ryan stayed awake for 48 hours building presentations, blaming the market, the sales team, and finally himself. Maya listened from the other side of their tiny kitchen table while he explained that the company needed $3 million to remain open. He never asked whether she could help. By then, he believed the inheritance she once mentioned had been modest and mostly spent on the mansion's down payment. Maya allowed that belief to remain because she wanted Ryan to feel his success belonged to his work, not to the woman he married. The next morning, she contacted the Bennett Family Trust and released emergency capital through an investment firm Ryan had never heard of. The money arrived after an independent review approved his recovery plan. Ryan celebrated by opening champagne and telling Maya that someone in the financial world had finally recognized his talent. She raised her glass and let him have the moment. That pattern repeated for years. When suppliers demanded shorter payment terms, Maya personally guaranteed a credit line through a private holding company. When Ryan wanted to open the West Coast division, She approved the property purchase from behind a trust that concealed her name. When an early product defect threatened a national recall, Maya used her board authority to protect employees from layoffs, while Ryan appeared before reporters and accepted praise for keeping the company steady. She never asked for public credit. She believed marriage meant building something together without counting whose hand held each brick. Ryan interpreted her silence differently. He began describing Maya as supportive but uninvolved. At investor dinners, he told stories about risking everything alone. Claire sat beside him and helped refine those stories, removing Maya from each version until Bennett dynamics sounded like the creation of one brilliant man and the woman who understood how to market him. Now, in Evelyn Brooks's office, Maya read the recovered messages showing that Claire knew about the hidden trust months before the affair was exposed. Ryan entered without knocking, his temporary visitor badge clipped awkwardly to his jacket. The man who once controlled the executive floor had been escorted upstairs by security. His eyes moved from the messages on the screen to Maya's face. "Claire told me you own part of the house," he said. "She never said you controlled the company." Maya turned toward him. "She sent you the trust document. Only the first pages. And that was enough for you to know I had been paying for the life you claimed was yours." Ryan's expression tightened. "I built Bennett Dynamics. You ran it." The distinction settled sharply between them. Your work mattered, Ryan. Your leadership mattered. But when the company needed money, legal protection, property, or time, it came from my trust. He shook his head. "You hid that from me. I hid my name from lenders. I never hid the fact that the company had investors. You let me believe I was independent. You were independent in every decision except the ones that would have destroyed thousands of jobs." Ryan paced toward the window. Below them, Bennett Dynamics employees crossed the courtyard carrying coffee and laptops, unaware that their former CEO was learning how little of the foundation beneath him carried his name. "Why keep me as CEO if you never trusted me?" he asked. "I trusted the man who used to read every employee's name before signing a layoff plan. I stopped trusting the man who gave his mistress an executive title and planned to remove my family name from the company." He looked back at her. "Claire manipulated me." Maya's gaze did not soften. "Claire gave you permission to become someone you already wanted to be." Evelyn placed a new audit report on the desk. It showed that Ryan had authorized a $6 million executive loan to finance the Harrington rebranding, using company property as collateral. The approval required controlling owner consent. Someone had submitted a digital authorization bearing Maya's credentials. Ryan stared at the signature. "I did not do this." Maya looked at the access record beneath it. The authorization had come from Claire's corporate account, but the security code had been generated from Ryan's private phone. Evelyn opened the final attachment. A recording from the mansion captured Claire telling Ryan, "Once Maya signs the divorce, we can make the ownership transfer look voluntary." Ryan's face went still. Maya closed the file. "You thought Claire was helping you steal my company," she said quietly. "You never considered that she might be planning to steal it from both of us." The moment Claire realized Ryan might expose her, she stopped pretending the affair had ever been about love. By noon, the board had frozen every authorization connected to the $6 million executive loan, suspended Claire's access, and ordered an independent review of all contracts she had touched. Maya remained in Evelyn Brooks's office while Ryan sat across from her, pale and restless, reading the same security records again as if repetition might produce a different truth. Claire had used his phone to generate Maya's owner code, then prepared documents that would place both the mansion and controlling shares into a new holding company after the divorce. Ryan had believed the structure would move power away from Maya and toward him. In reality, the holding company belonged to a private investment group registered under Claire's mother's maiden name. "She was planning to remove me too," Ryan said. Maya closed the audit file. "You were useful until the transfer was complete. I trusted her." The words almost sounded like an appeal for sympathy. Maya looked at the man who had asked her to leave her own bedroom less than 24 hours earlier. "So did I?" He lowered his eyes. That single answer carried 15 years of friendship and 12 years of marriage, both dismantled by people who believed trust was valuable only when it could be converted into control. Evelyn's phone rang. She listened briefly, then turned toward Maya. "Claire is at the mansion." Ryan stood. "She was told to leave." She returned through the service entrance using an old staff code. Maya rose without haste. What is she doing? The estate manager says she is removing files from the library and refusing to wait for counsel. Ryan reached for his coat. I'll handle it. Maya's gaze stopped him. You have handled enough. 20 minutes later, Maya entered the mansion through the front doors with Evelyn and Thomas Reed beside her. The white orchids had been removed, leaving faint circles of moisture on the foyer tables. Packed luggage still rested near the staircase. From the library came the sound of drawers opening and papers shifting. Claire stood behind the desk wearing a camel coat over the same cream dress, a leather portfolio pressed against her side. She froze when Maya appeared. I came for my employment records, she said. Thomas looked toward the open drawers. Those are estate files. Claire's composure returned quickly. Some of my personal documents were mixed with company materials. Maya walked into the room and closed the door behind her. Give me the portfolio. You do not get to order me around because your name is on a trust. No, I get to protect records from property you no longer have permission to enter. Claire held the portfolio tighter. You always do this. Do what? Stand there quietly while everyone assumes you are better than them. Maya studied her former friend's face. Beneath the anger was something older, something that had existed long before Ryan. I never thought I was better than you. You did not have to think it. You had the money, the family name, the house, the company, and the husband. You could afford to be generous because nothing was ever truly at risk. Maya's voice remained calm. You knew I owned the mansion 6 months ago. Claire's expression changed. Ryan told you. Your messages did. For 1 second, the mask dropped. Then you know why I had to act first. You had to steal my husband. I had to stop living in the shadow of everything you pretended not to care about. Ryan entered from the hallway despite Maya's instruction, stopping when he saw the portfolio. Claire, what did you take? She looked at him with open contempt. Now you care? What is in the bag? Claire moved toward the side door, but Thomas blocked the path without touching her. Evelyn stepped forward. Ms. Whitmore, removing trust documents may expose you to civil liability. Place the portfolio on the desk. Claire hesitated, then set it down. Maya opened it. Inside were copies of the mansion trust, company shareholder records, and a draft agreement transferring Bennett Dynamics to the private holding company. Beneath them lay a notarized statement bearing Ryan's signature, confirming that Claire had acted with his authorization. Ryan stared at the page. I never signed that. Claire gave a bitter laugh. You signed a stack of documents without reading them, just like you signed everything else. Maya turned to the final page. It showed that Claire's holding company had already promised Bennett Dynamics to an overseas buyer for 3 times its current market value. The sale was scheduled to close the following morning, pending one last requirement: proof that Maya had voluntarily surrendered her controlling shares. Claire had not only planned to take the company from Maya and Ryan, she had planned to sell it before either of them understood what was happening. The sale Claire arranged for Bennett Dynamics was not an act of desperation. It was the end of a plan she had been building while Maya still called her family. The library felt smaller as Maya reviewed the overseas purchase agreement line by line. The buyer was a private manufacturing group based in Zurich, represented through 3 holding companies and 1 law firm that specialized in acquisitions designed to avoid public scrutiny. The offer valued Bennett Dynamics at nearly 3 times its current market capitalization, but the premium came with conditions hidden beneath the financial language. The buyer intended to divide the company, sell its patents, close 2 domestic facilities, and eliminate more than 1,200 jobs within 6 months. Ryan leaned over the desk, reading the restructuring schedule with growing disbelief. Claire, you knew they planned to dismantle the company. She stood near the fireplace, her face pale but defiant. They planned to make it profitable by firing half the workforce. Do not suddenly pretend you built Bennett Dynamics for charity. Ryan looked as though the words had struck somewhere deeper than accusation. For all his arrogance, the company had once mattered to him beyond status. He knew the names of the first engineers, remembered the warehouse where they tested prototypes, and still kept the original product sketch framed in his office. Claire had never loved the company. She had loved what controlling it would prove. Maya closed the contract. The sale cannot proceed without my shares. Claire gave a thin smile. That is why the surrender agreement exists. Evelyn Brooks examined the notarized document. The signature is not Maya's. It did not need to survive forever, Claire said. only long enough for the transfer to close. The honesty stunned even Ryan. You were going to commit fraud, sell the company, and leave? Claire looked at him. You were going to leave your wife, take her house, and rename her company. Do not discover morality because my plan was better than yours. Ryan stepped back, unable to answer. Maya watched the two people who had betrayed her finally see each other without the illusion of romance. They had not been partners. They had been mirrors, each reflecting the other's appetite until one decided there was no longer enough to share. Thomas Reed remained near the door while Evelyn contacted corporate security and instructed them to preserve every file. Maya did not raise her voice or threaten Claire. She simply gathered the documents into the black portfolio and sealed it. The overseas buyer will receive notice tonight that the transaction is unauthorized, she said. The board will cancel every agreement connected to your holding company. The audit will determine the rest. Claire's eyes flashed. You think this makes you noble? No, Maya met her gaze. It makes me responsible for the people you planned to treat as numbers. Ryan looked toward Maya. Let me help stop the sale. You helped create the conditions for it. I did not know what Claire intended. You knew what you intended. The distinction silenced him. Maya instructed Thomas to escort Claire from the property and arrange transportation. Claire hesitated beside the library doorway, looking once at the mansion she had imagined owning. You will always have everything, she said to Maya. That is why you will never understand what I did. Maya's expression remained still. I understand wanting security. I do not understand confusing theft with becoming worthy of it. Claire left without another word. Ryan stayed behind, no longer speaking like a husband or a CEO, only a man waiting to learn what remained after every assumption had failed. Maya opened the original company charter and turned to the emergency protection clause. As controlling owner, she could place Bennett Dynamics into a temporary stewardship trust, freezing any sale and transferring voting power away from individual executives. She signed the resolution at the library desk while Evelyn witnessed it. What happens to me? Ryan asked. Maya capped the pen. Tomorrow, you will appear before the board and explain every authorization you gave Claire. His face tightened. And after that, the company will decide whether the man who tried to take it deserves any place inside it. Then Evelyn's phone lit up with an incoming message from the overseas buyer. They had received Claire's documents, but they were not surprised to hear the sale was unauthorized. Attached was an audio file from their first negotiation. Claire's voice filled the library. Ryan thinks this is about replacing Maya. Let him. By the time he understands, neither of them will own enough to stop me. The recording ended the last illusion Ryan had left, because Claire had never planned to share Maya's life with him. She had planned to sell it while he was still thanking her for helping him take it. The library remained silent after Claire's voice faded from Evelyn's phone. Outside, evening lights stretched across the lawn, touching the terrace where white orchids had stood only hours earlier. Ryan stared at the dark screen, his face emptied of anger. What remained was recognition. He had believed himself to be Claire's chosen partner, the man she admired enough to risk everything for. In truth, he had been another signature, another access code, another temporary bridge to property she intended to control alone. Maya closed the audio file. The board will hear this tomorrow. Ryan lowered himself into the chair opposite her. I was a fool. You were not fooled into betraying me. Her voice was quiet, but it stopped him from retreating into self-pity. Claire deceived you about the sale. She did not deceive you about our marriage, the house, or the company. You chose what you believed would benefit you. He looked toward the old company sketch framed above the library desk. I thought I deserved more. More than what? Maya asked. More than the life we built. More than the people who trusted you? Or simply more than me? Ryan had no answer. Evelyn gathered the contracts into a legal case and explained that the stewardship trust would take effect at midnight. Once active, no executive, including Ryan, could sell assets, transfer patents, or alter company ownership without approval from Maya and the independent board. Payroll, customer agreements, and employee benefits would remain protected. The company will survive, Evelyn said. Ryan looked at Maya. Because you planned for this. Because I learned a long time ago that leadership means preparing for the day someone values control more than responsibility. At 9 the next morning, Bennett Dynamics directors assembled in the main boardroom. Ryan entered through the public elevator wearing a plain navy suit and a temporary badge. Claire's seat remained empty. Her name had already been removed from the executive directory, though the investigation into her contracts continued. Maya sat at the head of the table beside Marcus Hale and Evelyn Brooks. She wore a deep burgundy suit, not to make an entrance, but because it was the color her mother wore when she signed the original company charter. Ryan took the seat assigned to him at the far end. Marcus opened the meeting by presenting the unauthorized loan, the forged approvals, the rebranding campaign, and Claire's overseas sale agreement. Then he played the recording. No director interrupted. When the final sentence ended, Marcus turned toward Ryan. Did you authorize Claire Whitmore to prepare ownership transfers involving Maya Bennett Harrington's shares? Ryan's jaw tightened. I authorized documents I believed would reorganize the company after the divorce. Did you review them? No. Did you intend to remove the Bennett name? Ryan glanced at Maya. Yes. The admission moved through the room without sound. Did you appoint Claire vice president in exchange for her personal relationship with you? I believe she was qualified. That was not the question. Ryan looked down. Yes. Maya did not smile when the board voted to terminate his role as chief executive. She did not look away either. The resolution passed unanimously. He would retain no authority, no executive compensation, and no claim over the company's future beyond a small non-voting interest earned during his employment. Ryan signed the acknowledgement with a hand that trembled only once. Before leaving, he paused beside Maya. You could have destroyed me publicly. The truth was sufficient, she replied. Marcus then opened the final stewardship resolution. Bennett Dynamics would transition over the next 12 months into an employee ownership structure, with Maya retaining protective control until the process was complete. The mansion would also be removed permanently from any marital claim and placed into a charitable trust. Ryan looked back from the doorway. What will happen to the house? Maya turned to the final page. It will become a residential center for women rebuilding after betrayal and financial abuse. The room settled around the decision. Then Evelyn handed Maya a sealed letter recovered from Claire's office. It had been written months earlier but never sent, addressed to Maya in Claire's handwriting. Inside was one sentence. I did not want Ryan. I wanted proof that I could take something from you that money could not replace. The letter revealed what Claire had wanted from the beginning, but it also proved she had never understood the one thing Maya refused to let betrayal take from her. Maya read the sentence twice in the quiet boardroom while the other directors gathered their files and left. I did not want Ryan. I wanted proof that I could take something from you that money could not replace. The words were not an apology. They were a confession stripped of every excuse Claire had used about ambition, insecurity, or survival. For 15 years, Maya had believed their friendship rested on shared history. Claire had believed it was a contest Maya did not know she was playing. Ryan stood near the doorway, watching Maya fold the letter and place it inside the black document case. I did not know she felt that way, he said. Maya looked at him. You knew enough to help her test it. He lowered his eyes. I thought she loved me. You thought being chosen by her proved something about your value. The truth unsettled him because it was precise. Ryan had not left Maya only for romance. He had left because Claire admired the version of him he wanted the world to see. Decisive, self-made, too important to be questioned. Maya had loved him before that version existed. Her presence reminded him of every debt, every compromise, and every quiet hand that had steadied him. What happens to Claire now? He asked. Evelyn closed the final audit folder. Her employment has been terminated. The company will pursue recovery of unauthorized funds and damages related to the attempted sale. The rest will be handled through counsel. Ryan looked toward Maya. And us. There is no us to discuss in this room. She did not say it with anger. That made the ending feel more final. By afternoon, the board released a public statement announcing Ryan's departure, the cancellation of the overseas transaction, and the transition toward employee ownership. Maya's name appeared not as Ryan's wife, but as controlling founder and chair of the stewardship trust. Reporters gathered outside the headquarters, expecting accusation, humiliation, and spectacle. Maya offered none. She spoke about protecting jobs, preserving the company's patents, and ensuring no executive could ever again trade employee security for personal ambition. When asked about her marriage, she answered only, private betrayal does not excuse public irresponsibility. The sentence traveled across every news channel by evening. Ryan watched from a hotel room, no longer welcome at the mansion and unable to access the office he had occupied for more than a decade. Claire watched from somewhere else, her phone filling with calls from reporters who once accepted every statement she prepared without question. The people they had tried to remove from the story now controlled the truth. Maya returned to the mansion after dark. The house was silent, stripped of flowers, guests, and the performance Claire had planned. Thomas had restored Maya's belongings to the primary bedroom, but she did not go upstairs. Instead, she walked through the library, the conservatory, and the long dining room where so many decisions had been disguised as family dinners. Each space held memories she no longer wanted to preserve simply because they were expensive. She met with an architect in the morning and explained her plan. The bedroom suites would become private residences. The ballroom would become a legal resource center. The conservatory would serve as a counseling garden. The library would remain, but its locked cabinets would be replaced with open shelves for women studying, rebuilding careers, and learning how to protect their finances. "You are giving up the house?" Thomas asked. Maya looked around the sunlit room. "I am changing what it is for." A week later, Ryan requested a final meeting at the mansion. Maya agreed to speak with him on the front terrace, where packed boxes once stood beside canceled flowers. He arrived alone, wearing no tie and carrying the divorce papers he had expected her to sign quietly. "I was wrong about the company," he said, "and the house, and Claire." Maya waited. "But I was most wrong. About you." She accepted the papers, signed the final page, and returned them. "You were wrong about what made any of it valuable." Ryan looked through the open doors at workers measuring rooms for the new residential center. "You are really giving it away." "No," Maya said. "I am finally using it for something worth keeping." Then Evelyn called with one last discovery. The attempted overseas sale had triggered a hidden clause in the original company charter. Because Maya had prevented the transfer and protected the workforce, every share Ryan once claimed through marriage reverted automatically to her trust. For the first time, there was no dispute left. The mansion and the company had always been Maya's, and now the law had finally caught up with the truth. The hidden clause did more than return Ryan's shares to Maya. It gave her the power to decide whether Bennett Dynamics would remain a monument to betrayal or become proof that something broken could still protect people. The next morning, Maya met with Evelyn Brooks, Marcus Hale, and the independent board inside the company's original warehouse in Brooklyn, where concrete floors, exposed beams, and an old whiteboard still carried faded measurements from the first prototype. Ryan had once called the building temporary. Maya had always considered it honest. There were no crystal chandeliers, no polished marble, and no rooms designed to make power appear larger than the people holding it. Around the long work table, the directors reviewed the charter provision triggered by the attempted sale. Every non-voting share Ryan had acquired through marriage, compensation, or deferred executive benefits reverted to Maya's protective trust because he had participated in an unauthorized transfer that endangered company ownership and employee security. Claire's false holding company had activated the same clause for every option connected to her appointment. The law did not punish their affair. It responded to the choices they made with assets that never belonged to them. "You now control 78% of the voting interest," Evelyn said. "No remaining shareholder can block the employee ownership transition." Maya looked through the warehouse windows at workers arriving for the morning shift. Some had been with Bennett Dynamics since the earliest days. Others knew her only from the public announcement that revealed she had been the controlling founder all along. "Then we do not use that control to create another permanent ruler," she said. Marcus nodded. "How much will you transfer?" 40% to the employee trust immediately. Another 20% over 5 years if the company meets wage, safety, and retention standards. My remaining shares stay in a protective foundation with no right to sell the company. One director leaned forward. "That removes the possibility of a future acquisition. It removes the possibility of anyone repeating what Ryan and Claire attempted." The resolution passed unanimously. By noon, every employee received notice that Bennett Dynamics would no longer be controlled by one executive, one marriage, or one private ambition. Workers would elect representatives to the board, receive annual profit participation, and hold protected voting rights on any proposal involving layoffs, relocation, or the sale of core patents. Maya did not announce herself as the company's savior. She credited the engineers, technicians, administrators, and warehouse teams whose work had continued while the people at the top treated ownership like a prize. Across town, Ryan received the same notice from his attorney. His remaining interest had reverted to Maya's trust, leaving him with no financial claim beyond severance already approved by the board. He called once. Maya let the phone ring. There was nothing left to explain. Claire sent no message. Her attorneys negotiated the repayment of unauthorized expenses, withdrawal from the furniture contracts, and cooperation with the investigation into the attempted sale. Maya did not ask for public humiliation or personal damages. She required only restoration of company funds, permanent surrender of Claire's options, and a written acknowledgement that every transfer had been unauthorized. Some board members wanted more. Maya refused. Consequences should protect what was harmed, she said. They should not become entertainment. At the mansion, renovations began in stages. The primary bedroom where Maya discovered the affair was divided into 2 private family suites. The ballroom where Claire planned her victory reception became a bright training hall for financial literacy, legal workshops, and job preparation. The library housed counselors, accountants, and advocates who helped women identify hidden debt, protect shared assets, and understand contracts before someone else used their trust against them. Maya named the center Haven Bennett, after her mother, but placed no portrait of herself in the entrance. On opening day, former employees, local organizers, and women preparing to move into the first residential rooms gathered beneath the restored family crest. Ryan stood beyond the gates for several minutes before deciding not to enter. Maya saw him from the terrace, but did not call him forward. Some endings did not require one final conversation. Inside, Thomas Reed handed her the original brass keys to the mansion. "They are still yours," he said. Maya looked at the open doors, the families crossing the foyer, and the women carrying suitcases upstairs without shame. Then she placed the keys inside a glass case beside the reception desk. Beneath them, a small plaque carried only one sentence. "Ownership means nothing until it becomes protection." Before the ceremony ended, Evelyn arrived with the final audit. Hidden inside Claire's private files was a draft letter addressed to the overseas buyer, promising that once Maya was removed, the mansion itself would be sold as part of the acquisition celebration. Maya closed the report without surprise. Claire had mistaken every beautiful thing for something that could be taken. Maya had finally learned that the only lasting way to keep a home was to make sure it belonged to more than one person's pride. The day Claire tried to steal Maya's husband, she believed she was taking a life already built. She never understood that Maya was the one who had built every foundation beneath it. 6 months after the affair was exposed, Bennett Dynamics held its first annual meeting under the Employee Ownership Trust. The event took place in the restored Brooklyn warehouse, not in a hotel ballroom. Engineers sat beside warehouse supervisors, administrators beside board members, and every employee received the same printed report showing profits, wages, safety investments, and voting rights. Maya stood near the original whiteboard where faded measurements still marked the company's first prototype. There was no dramatic entrance, no spotlight, and no title announced before her name. She wore a simple navy suit and watched as an assembly technician from Ohio cast the first employee vote in the company's history. The applause that followed was warm, steady, and unlike anything Ryan had ever demanded from a room. It belonged to everyone. Ryan did not attend. After losing his position, his shares, and the mansion he had mistaken for marital property, he moved into a rented apartment in Connecticut and began consulting for a small logistics firm. He sent Maya one final letter through their attorneys. There was no request for reconciliation. He admitted that he had confused being visible with being valuable, and that he had treated her silence as weakness because acknowledging her strength would have forced him to question his own story. Maya read the letter once, then placed it inside the closed divorce file. Forgiveness did not require reopening a door. Claire's name disappeared from company directories, society pages, and the rooms she once believed would confirm her worth. Under the settlement, she repaid the unauthorized expenses, surrendered every option connected to Bennett Dynamics, and signed a permanent acknowledgement that she had no claim to the company, the mansion, or the Bennett name. She moved away from New York before the investigation concluded. Maya never asked where. Some people left consequences behind them like shadows. Others finally learned to live without turning those shadows into chains. At Haven Bennett, the mansion no longer smelled of perfume, champagne, or polished ambition. The foyer carried the scent of coffee and fresh bread from the community kitchen. Children ran beneath the chandelier Claire once planned to use as a backdrop for her victory announcement. In the former ballroom, women learned how to read mortgage agreements, protect retirement accounts, and recognize when affection was being used to conceal financial control. The primary suite where Maya found Claire wearing her robe now housed two mothers